I've said things that just foot in the mouth, just stupid, stupid things.
Are you also bleeping illegal alien and amnesty, other words we're not supposed to use?
Well, one is a...
Let me ask you this question. Who makes you weep more for journalism? Keith Olbermann or me? That's quite a question.
For Democrats, it's another scalp to hang on the wall.
But when you refer to an entire ethnicity as camel jockeys, it sounds bigoted.
Yes, and it's so mean after they killed 3,000 Americans. We have sure moved away from the day when we called them Krauts and Nips.
And we're talking about Harlem. And by and large, I lived in New York for 8 years. White people don't go to Harlem. If Dan Abrams and John DePietro, Bill O'Reilly, some white guys sitting around a table, and Dan Abrams said, yeah, I was up in Harlem last night, we would think you were either A, looking for drugs, or B, looking for a prostitute.
I don't understand why people take the NAACP seriously. It was a group whose history we can all respect, and I know I do respect its history, but at this point, it's a sad joke that should be shut down, I think, immediately. It is a stretch, and I'm half joking.
We're all reacting here and putting on shit. We have nothing to... Welcome back to Hardball.
How's that for an intro, Joe?
That's pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, thank you. So,
well, I think that Hillary's wife, Bill, is going to be a detriment, unfortunately, to Mrs. Clinton, because it's going to be a situation where, since he's still dating, it's obviously going to be a detraction, I think, from the race. So that's going to be problematic for Mrs. Clinton.
Tolerance and diversity is the guidepost for public life. This is what you end up getting. You get congressmen chasing 16-year-old boys down the halls of Congress.
You were afraid, I assume. Yeah. People have seen shots of you wearing a burqa. How did you stay out of that thing?
This is the same old fight we see all the time with the irreligious trying to stir up trouble with the religious. Yes, godless liberals are upset that other people believe in God.
Just hours after I left the prison at Gitmo last Friday, 3 detainees committed suicide.
Wolf, long term, the investment that we're making today will be a small price.
Every debate, David Brody, the Republicans have, they make the point, we understand Islamic fascism, we understand the terrorist threat, the Democrats don't.
The fact that this question even came up 3 years after the Iraq War really underscores the intensity, perhaps, of the suspicion and the debate whether or not this administration intentionally blurred the lines between Iraq and September 11th to justify the invasion of Iraq 3 years ago.
You know, I've heard this theory about, everything was just fine until we arrived, and then, kind of, stir up the hornet's nest theory. It just doesn't hold water as far as I'm concerned. The terrorists attacked us and killed 3,000 of our citizens before we started the freedom agenda in the Middle East.
The fact is, the president made it clear before the State of the Union in 2002 that there was no link between Saddam Hussein and September 11th. 40% of Americans believe that it was Iraq, Saddam Hussein, who attacked us on 9/11. Does that concern you that people are misinformed?
No, but I think bother you. But
that would explain why people supported the war.
Look, I don't think that's a particularly good question.
It's the answer I'm asking if you're concerned about.
Right, well, this is why it's not a good question, because we do know Saddam was working with Al-Qaeda's top agents.
Who are we fighting there now, Juan? Al-Qaeda in Iraq. They were there before we got there, and they're there now.
Sometimes I just want to scream.
We could never verify that there was any Iraqi authority, direction, and control, complicity with Al-Qaeda for 9/11 or any operational act against America.
Weapons of mass destruction, the claim that Iraq was sponsoring terrorists who had attacked us on 9/11, and that Iraq had purchased nuclear materials from Niger. Now, all three of those turned out to be false.
I was very careful never to say that Saddam Hussein ordered the attacks on America.
How do you expect a generation of young people such as ourselves to afford college at a time like this when we're paying for a war in Iraq?
My point to you is economic growth enables us to do more than one thing.
I just don't get it. If a military strike against Iran, initially would be extraordinarily popular.
You said that Americans backed, the invasion of Iraq because they thought Iraq was responsible for 9/11. So you're saying, like, if the president lies to the American people again, then it would be popular.
Now we have no longer any other options but to go in to Iran. Iran has long been the puppet master in the Middle East. You don't have to take my word for it. Just watch any episode of Law and Order.
And really, the reaction to the suicide should be boo freaking who.